Captain Kyle Manning stood on the bridge of the Aurora, watching the stars drift past the view screen. His shift was almost over, and he looked forward to calling his wife Kate and daughter Emma back on Earth. They had moved to Seattle last month, and Emma was excited about her new school. Kyle smiled at the thought. His daughter was growing up so fast. The communications officer, Lieutenant Sophie Graham, suddenly straightened in her chair. Her fingers moved quickly across her console and her face went pale. Kyle noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked, walking toward her station. Sophie looked up at him, confusion and fear in her eyes. "Sir, I just lost all signals from Earth. Everything went dark at once." Kyle felt his heart skip a beat. "Check the equipment. Maybe it's a malfunction on our end." Sophie's hands flew across the controls. She shook her head. "No, sir, equipment is fine. I'm not picking up anything from Earth. No commercial signals, no military channels, no civilian broadcasts. Nothing." Other crew members began reporting the same thing. The Mars colonies were trying to contact Earth with no response. The lunar stations were silent. Every human installation in the solar system had gone dark simultaneously. Kyle grabbed the edge of Sophie's console to steady himself. Kate and Emma were down there. 8 billion people were down there. They couldn't just vanish. "Get me Admiral Patricia Lawson at Mars Command," Kyle ordered, his voice tight. The screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Lawson's stern face. She looked tired and worried. Behind her, the Mars Command Center was filled with frantic activity. "Captain Manning," she said, "I assume you're calling about Earth." "Yes, ma'am." "What's happening?" "We don't know. 20 minutes ago, every signal from Earth stopped. We've sent probes, but they're not getting through. There's something blocking them at the edge of the solar system." Kyle felt cold. "Blocking them? What kind of something?" "We don't know that either. I'm ordering all ships to hold position until we understand what we're dealing with. Do not attempt to enter the solar system. That's a direct order." "But Admiral, my family is down there. Everyone's family is down there." Lawson's expression softened slightly. "I know, Captain. My son is on Earth too. But rushing in blind won't help anyone. We need information first." The transmission ended, leaving Kyle staring at the blank screen. Around him, his crew worked in stunned silence. Many of them had family on Earth. The ship felt different now. Heavier somehow. Sergeant Danny Cross, the head of the Aurora's Marine Detachment, approached Kyle. Danny was a big man with a scarred face and steady eyes. He had served in 3 border wars and never seemed shaken by anything. But now his hands trembled slightly. "Captain, what are your orders?" Danny asked quietly. Kyle took a deep breath. "We follow Admiral Lawson's instructions. We hold position and wait for more information. And if something bad happened down there, then we'll deal with it. But right now we don't know anything." Hours passed with no new information. The crew tried to stay focused on their duties, but the silence from Earth pressed down on everyone. Kyle sat in his ready room staring at a photo of Kate and Emma. They were at a beach, smiling and happy. The image seemed to mock him now. A message came through from Commander Jake Pierce, who led a scout ship near the outer planets. His face appeared on Kyle's personal screen and he looked shaken. "Captain Manning, we found something. You need to see this." "What is it?" "A barrier. It surrounds the entire solar system. We can't get through it, can't scan through it. It just appeared out of nowhere right when Earth went silent." Kyle leaned forward. "A barrier? What kind of barrier?" "Unknown. The energy readings are off the charts. Nothing in our databases matches it. Captain, this thing is massive. It would take technology far beyond anything we have to create something like this. Could it be alien?" Jake hesitated. "Maybe, or maybe it's something else. Either way, Earth is cut off. Nothing gets in or out." The news spread quickly through the fleet. Panic began to set in among the human colonies. Earth wasn't just silent. It was sealed off from the rest of the universe. The implications were terrifying. The Galactic Council called an emergency session on Station Olympus. Kyle watched the broadcast from the Aurora. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the great chamber. The Velkari ambassador, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms, stood at the central podium. "The humans owe us an explanation," the Velkari said, his voice harsh. "What are they doing in their home system? Is this some kind of military exercise?" The human representative, Dr. Lisa Brennan, stood up. She was a scientist, not a politician, and she looked uncomfortable under the glare of so many alien eyes. "We don't know what's happening. she said simply. Earth is as much a mystery to us as it is to you. We're trying to understand it. Convenient, the Velkari sneered. The humans go silent, seal off their home system, and expect us to believe they know nothing about it. Other aliens began shouting questions and accusations. The council chamber descended into chaos. Kyle turned off the broadcast. He couldn't watch anymore. Lieutenant Sophie Graham entered his ready room without knocking, which she never did. Kyle looked up, ready to remind her about protocol, but the expression on her face stopped him. Captain, I just received a message from the outer colonies. The Kryn Dominion is moving ships toward our territory. They think we're weak without Earth. Kyle felt anger replace his fear. The Kryn were a warrior species that respected only strength. They had been peaceful because Earth's military kept them in check. Now with Earth silent, they saw an opportunity. Send a message to Admiral Lawson. Tell her the Kryn are moving. Already did, sir. She's ordering defensive positions around all human colonies. Kyle stood up and walked to the view screen. Earth was out there, hidden behind an impossible barrier. His wife and daughter were trapped, maybe hurt, maybe worse, and he couldn't do anything to help them. The galaxy was changing. Earth's silence had created a void, and forces were already moving to fill it. Humanity's enemies grew bold while their allies grew suspicious, and somewhere, behind that barrier, 8 billion people faced an unknown fate. Kyle pressed his hand against the view screen, as if he could somehow reach through space and touch his home world. The stars offered no comfort, only cold, distant light. We'll find out what happened, he whispered. We'll bring you home. But deep down, Kyle wondered if that was a promise he could keep. 3 weeks had passed since Earth went silent, and the situation grew worse every day. Kyle stood in the briefing room aboard the Aurora, surrounded by officers from a dozen different ships. Admiral Patricia Lawson's face filled the main screen, broadcasting from Mars Command. We're forming a task force to study the barrier, Lawson said. Captain Manning, you'll lead it. Your mission is to find a way through or find out what's on the other side. Kyle nodded. Understood, Admiral. What resources will I have? Whatever you need. The Council is providing ships and equipment from multiple species. They want answers as much as we do. After the briefing ended, Kyle met with his new team. Sergeant Danny Cross stood near the back, arms crossed over his broad chest. His sister Nicole lived on Earth, and the waiting was eating him alive. Lieutenant Sophie Graham sat at a console, already reviewing data about the barrier. A new face joined them, a young officer named Commander Jake Pierce. He had been studying the barrier since it appeared and knew more about it than anyone. The barrier is unlike anything we've ever seen, Jake explained, pulling up holographic displays. It's not solid. It's pure energy, but stable. Nothing we've tried can penetrate it. What about weapons? Danny asked. We tried that. Nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, everything. The barrier absorbs it all without even flickering. Sophie looked up from her console. I've been analyzing the energy signature. There's something strange about it. The pattern repeats every 7 hours like a heartbeat. Kyle leaned forward. A heartbeat? You mean it's alive? No, I mean it's maintained. Something is generating this barrier, and it requires constant power. Massive amounts of power. Could Earth be generating it? Jake asked. Maybe, but why would they? And why cut off all communication? The team worked around the clock, sending probes toward the barrier and analyzing every scrap of data. Other ships joined them, forming a ring around the solar system. The Velkari sent scientists. The Kryn sent military observers. Even the peaceful Sethians contributed research vessels. Dr. Lisa Brennan arrived from the Galactic Council, bringing with her the galaxy's leading experts on energy fields and quantum mechanics. She looked exhausted but determined. We need to consider all possibilities, she told Kyle during a private meeting. This could be an attack from outside, or it could be something Earth did to protect themselves. Protect themselves from what? That's what we need to find out. Days turned into more weeks. The human colonies grew restless. Without Earth's guidance and resources, they felt vulnerable. Pirates attacked shipping lanes. The Kryn pushed harder at the borders. Some colonies talked about breaking away and forming their own governments. Admiral Lawson worked day and night to hold everything together. Vice Admiral Greg Holland commanded the defense forces, moving ships to protect the weakest colonies. But everyone knew they were spread too thin. Earth's military had been the backbone of human security. Without it, they were exposed. Kyle pushed his team harder, knowing that every day of silence made things worse. Sophie barely slept, running simulation after simulation, Jake flew dangerous missions close to the barrier, trying to find weak points. Danny kept the security team sharp, preparing for whatever they might find. Then Dr. Henry Moss, a researcher on the science station Horizon, made a discovery that changed everything. He called Kyle directly, his face on the screen pale and frightened. "Captain Manning, I found something in the old archives. Ancient warnings from extinct civilizations." "What kind of warnings?" "About a force that consumed entire worlds. The records are fragmentary, but they describe an energy barrier just like the one around Earth. The civilizations used it as a last resort." "A last resort against what?" "They called them the Devourers, machines that ate everything, biological and technological matter. They grew stronger with each world they consumed. The barriers were used to contain them, to prevent them from spreading." Kyle felt his blood run cold. "You're saying Earth might be under attack by these machines?" "I'm saying the barrier matches the ancient descriptions exactly. If I'm right, then something terrible is happening on Earth right now." The news spread through the task force like wildfire. If Earth was fighting these Devourers, they were fighting alone, cut off from any help. The thought of 8 billion people trapped with an enemy that consumed worlds made Kyle sick. He called an emergency meeting with all the team leaders. The briefing room was packed with humans and aliens, all looking grim. "If Dr. Moss is right, we need to find a way through that barrier," Kyle said. "Earth might need our help." A Velkari scientist shook his head. "Captain, the records say the barriers were one way. Once erected, they couldn't be lowered without destroying everything inside. Then we find another way. We don't abandon Earth?" "No one is suggesting abandoning them," Dr. Lisa Brennan said gently. "But we need to be realistic about what we can do." Danny stood up, his voice rough. "My sister is down there. I'm not giving up on her. I'm not giving up on any of them." Sophie pulled up new data on the screens. "I've detected fluctuations in the barrier's energy output. Brief moments where it weakens slightly. If we time it right, we might be able to send a probe through." "How brief are these moments?" Kyle asked. "Milliseconds. And they're random. We'd have to be incredibly lucky. Then we make our own luck. Prepare everything we have. The moment we see a fluctuation, we send probes through." The team worked with new urgency. They positioned dozens of small probes near the barrier, ready to launch at a moment's notice. Sophie monitored the energy readings constantly, looking for any sign of weakness. 4 days later it happened. The barrier flickered for just a fraction of a second. Sophie launched 3 probes immediately. 2 were destroyed instantly, but 1 made it through. The data it sent back was limited and confusing. Images of destroyed cities, burning landscapes, massive structures moving through the ruins. Then the probe's signal died, but they had seen something. Earth was under attack. The Devourers were real, and they were destroying humanity's homeworld. Kyle stared at the images, his hands clenched into fists. Kate and Emma were down there somewhere, fighting for their lives. Or maybe they were already gone. He couldn't let himself think about that. "We keep trying," he said quietly. "We find a way to help them." Admiral Lawson's face appeared on the screen. She had seen the probe data too. Her expression was hard, but Kyle saw the pain in her eyes. "Captain Manning, new priority. We prepare for the worst. If that barrier comes down and those things get out, we need to stop them. Start building defensive positions. I'm pulling every ship we have to create a perimeter. Admiral, we can't just give up on Earth." "I'm not giving up, Captain. I'm being realistic. If we can't help them, then we honor their fight by making sure those machines don't spread. We protect the rest of humanity." The transmission ended. Kyle looked around at his team. They all wore the same expression, grief mixed with determination. Earth was fighting a war they couldn't win, and the rest of humanity could only watch. But watching wasn't enough. Kyle made a decision then. Even if the barrier couldn't be broken, even if Earth was lost, they would bear witness. They would remember. And if any humans survived down there, they would know they weren't forgotten. The galaxy owed Earth a debt that could never be repaid. The least they could do was stand guard and hope. 2 months after Earth went silent, Kyle was reviewing supply reports when the alarm started blaring. He ran to the bridge where Sophie was already at her station, her face bright with hope and fear. "Captain, something's coming through the barrier," she said quickly. On the view screen, a small object emerged from the shimmering energy field. It tumbled through space, leaving a trail of frozen vapor behind it. An escape pod, old and damaged. Get a tractor beam on it, Kyle ordered. Bring it in carefully. The Aurora's medical team rushed to the landing bay. Kyle and Danny arrived just as the pod's hatch opened with a hiss of stale air. Inside, barely alive, was a woman in a torn military uniform. Her face was covered in burns and cuts, and her left arm hung at an odd angle. "Get her to medical now," Kyle shouted. Dr. Lisa Brennan, who had stayed with the task force, worked on the woman for 3 hours. Kyle and Danny waited outside the medical bay, neither of them speaking. Finally, Lisa emerged, wiping blood from her hands. "She'll live. Her name is Lieutenant Amy Clark, Earth Defense Force. She's been asking for you, Captain." Kyle entered the medical bay slowly. Amy lay on a bed connected to various monitors. Her eyes were open but distant, as if seeing things far away. "Lieutenant Clark, I'm Captain Kyle Manning. Can you tell us what happened on Earth?" Amy's voice was hoarse and weak. "The Devourers. They came from beneath the ice in Antarctica. Ancient machines buried for millions of years. When they woke up, they started consuming everything. How long ago did this start?" "About a week before the barrier went up. They spread so fast. New York fell in 2 days. Beijing in 3. They ate the buildings, the people, everything. And they grew stronger." Danny leaned forward, his voice urgent. "My sister Nicole, she was in Denver. Do you know if Denver still stands?" Amy looked at him with sad eyes. "Denver was evacuated underground before I left. I don't know if it still holds." Kyle felt his throat tighten. "Lieutenant, who put up the barrier?" "We did. Earth scientists and military command. Dr. Frank Miller led the research team. General Victoria Lane made the final decision." Amy's eyes filled with tears. "We knew what it meant. Once the barrier went up, it couldn't come down without destroying everything. But if we didn't do it, the Devourers would spread across the galaxy." The weight of those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Earth had sacrificed itself. 8 billion people had chosen to die rather than let the threat escape. President Charles Wright addressed the planet one last time before the barrier activated, Amy continued. "He said to tell the galaxy that we bought them time, that they shouldn't waste it." Kyle had to sit down. His wife Kate, his daughter Emma, they had known this would happen. They had chosen this. The thought broke something inside him. "How many people survived?" Lisa asked gently. "Millions were evacuated to underground shelters. The military is fighting a holding action on the surface. But we're losing ground every day." Dr. Miller estimated the barrier would hold for maybe 5 years. "After that, the power source will fail." 5 years, Kyle repeated numbly. "And then what?" "And then the Devourers break free, unless someone finds a way to stop them." Amy delivered the rest of her message, the technical data and tactical information Earth's scientists had gathered. Then exhaustion overtook her, and she fell into a deep sleep. Kyle called an emergency meeting with Admiral Lawson and the Galactic Council. He played Amy's testimony for them. The council chamber, usually filled with arguments and political maneuvering, fell completely silent. The Velkari ambassador, who had accused humans of trickery, stood with his head bowed. "We owe humanity a debt beyond measure. They saved us all." Other ambassadors echoed his words. The Kryn representative, a fierce warrior named Krell, stood at attention as if saluting fallen soldiers. The Sethians, a species that rarely showed emotion, openly wept. Admiral Lawson addressed the council, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "Earth has given us 5 years. We need to use that time to prepare. When that barrier falls, we must be ready to face the Devourers. The galaxy stands with humanity," Krell declared. "We will not let Earth's sacrifice be in vain." For the first time in recorded history, every species in the council voted unanimously. They would pool their resources, share their technology, and build a defense that could stop the Devourers. Kyle returned to the Aurora in a daze. His crew looked at him with questions in their eyes, and he had to tell them the truth. Earth was gone, not destroyed but unreachable. Their families had sacrificed themselves for the greater good. Some crew members broke down crying. Others stood in stunned silence. Danny punched a wall hard enough to leave a dent, then walked away without a word. Sophie buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Kyle went to his ready room and looked at the photo of Kate and Emma again. They were smiling at him from the beach, frozen in a moment of happiness that would never come again. He wanted to be angry at them for choosing this. He wanted to curse them for leaving him, but he couldn't. They had been braver than he could ever imagine. He recorded a message, knowing it would probably never reach them, but needing to say it anyway. Kate, Emma, if you can somehow hear this, I want you to know I understand. I'm proud of you. I love you. And I promise we'll make your sacrifice mean something. Over the next few days, more information trickled in from Earth through quantum bursts that occasionally penetrated the barrier. General Victoria Lane was alive, commanding the resistance from a bunker beneath what used to be Denver. Danny's sister Nicole was with her, leading civilian evacuation efforts. The messages painted a picture of desperate courage. Millions of humans fighting against impossible odds, not for victory but for time. Every day they held out was another day for the galaxy to prepare. The Kryn sent their finest warriors to join the defensive preparations. The Velkari contributed their most advanced weapons. The Sethians, masters of energy manipulation, worked on ways to strengthen defensive barriers. Dozens of other species offered whatever they could. Captain Kyle Manning took command of the Sentinel Line, a massive defensive network being constructed around the solar system. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds worked together, building something unprecedented in galactic history. Commander Jake Pierce led expeditions to dead worlds, searching for any technology that might help fight the Devourers. He found fragments of ancient weapons and defensive systems, all that remained of civilizations that had fallen to the machines. Dr. Lisa Brennan coordinated the scientific efforts, bringing together the brightest minds from across the galaxy. They studied the probe data, Amy's testimony, and the ancient records, looking for any weakness the Devourers might have. Lieutenant Sophie Graham worked day and night developing new scanning technologies, hoping to peer through the barrier and gather more information. Her dedication inspired others, and soon scientists from every species were contributing ideas. Sergeant Danny Cross trained a new military force, combining tactics from multiple species into something greater than the sum of its parts. He pushed himself and his troops harder than ever, driven by the knowledge that his sister was fighting down on Earth. The galaxy transformed in ways no one had thought possible. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked side by side. The unity forged by Earth's sacrifice created something beautiful and terrible at the same time, but everyone knew the truth. When the barrier fell and the Devourers emerged, all their preparations might not be enough. The machines had destroyed countless civilizations. They had consumed galaxies. What hope did the current galactic civilization have against such a force? Yet they prepared anyway, because Earth had shown them something important. Sometimes courage wasn't about winning. Sometimes it was about fighting anyway, about buying time for others, about sacrificing yourself so that someone else could live. Kyle stood on the bridge of the Aurora, looking at the barrier that hid his home. Behind that shimmering wall, his family was fighting and dying, and all he could do was build defenses and hope it would be enough. The galaxy would never forget the day Earth went silent, but more importantly, they would never forget why. The transformation of the galaxy happened faster than anyone thought possible. Species that had fought wars for generations now shared research labs and training facilities. The unity was imperfect and sometimes tense, but it held together, bound by the memory of Earth's sacrifice. Admiral Patricia Lawson stood in the command center on Mars, coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. Ships arrived daily from every corner of known space. The Kryn brought their massive battlecruisers. The Velkari contributed advanced shield technology. The Sethians offered their unique understanding of energy manipulation. Kyle worked 18-hour days overseeing the construction of the Sentinel Line. The defensive network grew larger every week. A ring of weapons platforms, shield generators, and sensor arrays surrounding the solar system. It was designed for one purpose: to stop anything that came through that barrier. Lieutenant Sophie Graham made a breakthrough in scanning technology that allowed them to catch glimpses through the barrier during energy fluctuations. The images were brief and unclear, but they revealed enough. Earth's surface was a battlefield. Massive devourer machines moved through the ruins of cities, consuming everything in their path. But humans still fought back. "Look at this," Sophie said to Kyle one day, showing him an enhanced image. "That's Denver, or what's left of it. See those defensive positions? They're still holding the underground entrance." Kyle studied the image. Somewhere down there, Danny's sister Nicole was helping people survive. Somewhere down there, his own family might still be alive. The thought gave him strength. Commander Jake Pierce returned from another expedition to an ancient dead world. His ship was damaged and he looked exhausted, but his eyes burned with determination. He carried a strange device covered in symbols no one could read. This was buried in a vault on Kelnar Prime, Jake explained to the assembled scientists. The civilization there survived a devourer attack long enough to leave records. This device, they claimed, it could disrupt the machine's coordination. Dr. Lisa Brennan examined the artifact carefully.
Can we replicate it?
Maybe, but it would require resources we don't have, and we'd need to test it, which means getting close to active devourers. Then we find the resources and figure out how to test it, Kyle said firmly. Every weapon we develop increases our chances. The months passed in a blur of constant work. The crew of the Aurora became the core of the Sentinel Line's operations. Other humans and aliens looked to them for leadership, drawn by their connection to Earth's sacrifice. Sergeant Danny Cross received a message from inside the barrier, a quantum burst that somehow reached him directly. His sister Nicole's voice, scratchy and broken, came through his console. Danny, if you're hearing this, I want you to know I'm okay. We're still fighting. General Lane says to tell you we've evacuated 3 million people to the deep shelters. It's not much compared to what we lost, but it's something. Tell everyone out there we're not giving up. We won't let this be for nothing. Danny played the message for Kyle in private. Both men stood in silence afterward, neither trusting themselves to speak. Finally, Danny cleared his throat. She sounds strong, he said quietly. She is strong. They all are. More messages trickled out from Earth over time. General Victoria Lane sent tactical data about the Devourers, information bought with the blood of soldiers who died gathering it. Dr. Frank Miller transmitted research findings from his laboratory deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. President Charles Wright, still alive and leading from a bunker beneath the ruins of Washington, sent words of encouragement to the colonies. Each message reminded the galaxy why they were preparing. These weren't abstract threats or distant dangers. Earth was fighting a real war, and every day they survived gave the rest of the galaxy more time to prepare. The Galactic Council formally recognized Earth's sacrifice by declaring the Sol system a memorial to be protected forever. They voted to supply the survivors indefinitely, regardless of the barrier. Massive cargo ships began arriving at the barrier's edge, loaded with food, medicine, and equipment. They couldn't get through, but quantum teleportation technology allowed small amounts of supplies to be sent to the other side. It wasn't much, but it was something. Earth survivors weren't completely alone. Vice Admiral Greg Holland led training exercises that combined forces from dozens of species. At first, the different military doctrines clashed. Kryn warriors thought the Velkari too cautious. The Scythians found both too aggressive, but slowly they learned to work together, each species contributing their strengths. Kyle watched one of these exercises from the Aurora's bridge. Hundreds of ships moved in perfect coordination, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible a year ago. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. We're getting better, Sophie observed, standing beside him. But will it be enough? It has to be. Dr. Lisa Brennan assembled a think tank of scientists to analyze every scrap of information about the Devourers. They worked in a research station called Horizon 2, built specifically for this purpose. The station orbited just outside the barrier, close enough to monitor any changes. One of Lisa's team, a Scythian named Taylor, discovered something important. The Devourers weren't mindless. They had a network intelligence, each machine connected to all the others. If they could disrupt that network, they might be able to stop the machines entirely. The problem is getting close enough to test it, Taylor explained to Kyle. We'd need to send someone into an active Devourer swarm. Then we wait until the barrier falls and test it in battle, Kyle said. That's incredibly risky. If the theory is wrong, we'll have wasted our best opportunity. And if we try to test it through the barrier, we might weaken the barrier itself. No, we wait. We prepare, and when the time comes, we use everything we've learned. The unity that Earth's sacrifice created extended beyond military preparations. Artists from every species created works honoring humanity. Musicians composed symphonies about courage and sacrifice. Children across the galaxy learned about the day Earth went silent and why it mattered. The human colonies, once vulnerable and scattered, found new strength in the support of other species. Trade routes that had been threatened by pirates were now protected by joint patrols. Colonies that struggled with resources received aid from unexpected sources. Kyle received a message from a colony world called New Haven. The colonists there had been considering abandoning their settlement before the silence. Now supported by Velkari engineers and Scythian energy experts, they were thriving. They wanted to thank Earth for what it had done, for showing the galaxy that working together made them all stronger. 4 years after the silence began, the Sentinel Line was complete. It was the most formidable defensive network ever built, combining the best technology and tactics from hundreds of species. Kyle stood on the Aurora's bridge, looking at the massive structure on the view screen. "It's magnificent," Sophie said softly. "Earth would be proud." "They better be," Danny added. "We built this for them." But everyone knew the real test was still coming. The barrier would fail eventually. When it did, they would face the Devourers. And despite all their preparations, despite the unity and the weapons and the training, no one knew if it would be enough. Inside the barrier, Earth survivors continued their desperate battle. General Victoria Lane sent fewer messages now, but those she sent were filled with determination. They had pushed the Devourers back from some areas. They had found ways to slow the machine's advance. They were learning to fight an enemy that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than theirs. Kyle thought about Kate and Emma constantly. Were they alive? Were they safe in some deep shelter? Or had they died fighting on the surface? He would probably never know. But he held on to hope anyway, because hope was all he had left. The galaxy had responded to Earth's sacrifice with unprecedented cooperation. They had built something amazing, a unified force ready to face an ancient evil. But as Kyle looked at the barrier hiding his homeworld, he wondered if amazing would be enough. In 8 months, the barrier would fail. In 8 months, they would find out if Earth's sacrifice and the galaxy's response had been sufficient. In 8 months, everything would change. Until then, they prepared, they trained, and they remembered why they were doing this. Because Earth had shown them what true courage looked like, and the galaxy would never forget. 4 years and 8 months after the silence began, Kyle was reviewing defensive positions when Sophie ran onto the bridge, her face flushed with excitement and fear. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission through the barrier. It's clear. It's strong. And it's from General Lane." Kyle's heart hammered in his chest. They hadn't received a clear transmission in months. He rushed to the communication station, and Admiral Lawson's face appeared on screen at the same time. "Connecting from Mars Command. Patch it through," Lawson ordered. General Victoria Lane's image flickered to life. She looked older than Kyle remembered, her face lined with exhaustion and bearing scars from battle. But her eyes were bright, and incredibly she was smiling. "This is General Victoria Lane, Earth Defense Command, transmitting to all Allied forces. We won. Against every odd, against all predictions, we won." Kyle felt his knees go weak. Sophie grabbed his arm to steady him. Around the bridge, crew members stopped what they were doing, staring at the screen in disbelief. "Dr. Frank Miller's team found the Devourer's weakness 3 days ago," Lane continued. "A specific quantum frequency disrupts their network intelligence. We used every remaining power source on Earth to generate a pulse. It worked. The Devourers are gone, destroyed down to the molecular level." Cheers erupted across the Aurora. Kyle heard similar celebrations from other ships through the communication channels, but Lane's expression grew sad and the cheering slowly died down. The cost was catastrophic. Of 8 billion people, fewer than 400 million survived. Every major city is destroyed. The surface is a wasteland that will take centuries to recover. But we're alive. Humanity survived. Kyle felt tears streaming down his face. 400 million. It was such a small number compared to what they'd had. But it was also 400 million people who could have died if not for Earth's sacrifice. However, Lane continued, her voice heavy, the barrier cannot be lowered. Dr. Miller analyzed it thoroughly. Deactivating it would trigger a quantum collapse that would destroy the entire solar system. We won the battle, but we remain prisoners. The celebration stopped. Kyle felt his hope shatter. They had survived, but they were still trapped. His wife and daughter, if they were among the survivors, would remain forever beyond his reach. Admiral Lawson spoke up. "General Lane, this is Admiral Patricia Lawson. Is there absolutely no way to bring down the barrier safely?" "None. We've exhausted every possibility. The barrier is permanent. Earth will remain sealed for as long as the human species exists. Kyle gripped the edge of the console. Can we at least communicate? Can we see each other? Yes. The quantum communication network can be maintained now that the Devourers are gone. You won't be able to touch us, but you'll know we're here. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. More than they'd had for almost 5 years. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Every species sent their highest representatives. The mood was strange, a mixture of celebration and mourning. Earth had won, but the victory came with an unbearable price. The Velkari ambassador stood first. The Council proposes that the Sol system be designated as eternal memorial and sanctuary. Every species will contribute to supplying Earth survivors. They will never be abandoned. The vote was unanimous. Resources began flowing toward the barrier immediately. Food, medicine, construction materials. Everything Earth needed to rebuild in their sealed prison. Kyle led the first supply convoy to the barrier's edge. As the Aurora approached, he opened a video channel. A face appeared on screen, older and scarred but unmistakably familiar. Kate. His wife was alive. Kyle, she said, her voice breaking. I thought I'd never see you again. I'm here. I'm right here. He reached toward the screen, knowing he could never actually touch her but needing to try anyway. Emma's alive too. She's with the evacuation team in what's left of Seattle. She asks about you every day. Kyle couldn't speak. He could only nod, tears blinding him. We made the right choice, Kate said softly. I know it's hard. I know it hurts. But we saved the galaxy. That has to mean something. It means everything. You're heroes, all of you. They talked for hours, catching up on years of separation. Kate told him about the war, about the desperate battles and narrow escapes. She told him about the friends they'd lost and the strangers who became family in the underground shelters. Kyle told her about the Sentinel line, about the galaxy coming together, about how Earth's sacrifice had changed everything. Similar conversations happened across the fleet. Danny finally spoke with his sister Nicole. She looked exhausted but proud, wearing the uniform of Earth's Defense Force. She told him about leading civilians through collapsing tunnels, about holding the line when the Devourers pushed toward the shelters, about refusing to give up even when everything seemed lost. Commander Jake Pierce connected with his father, who he'd thought was dead. Dr. Lisa Brennan spoke with her research team on Earth, scientists who had survived in an underground laboratory and contributed to finding the Devourer's weakness. Lieutenant Sophie Graham had no family on Earth, but she connected with a young engineer named Peter Hayes, who had helped maintain the barrier systems. They talked about technical details at first, but soon were sharing personal stories and finding comfort in each other's company. The weeks that followed were strange. Earth was saved but unreachable. The survivors could talk to the rest of humanity but never leave their prison. Some people couldn't handle it. The psychological weight of being so close yet forever separated proved too much, but most found ways to cope. Regular video calls became routine. The children of Earth met the children of the colonies through screens. Families separated by an impossible barrier learned to maintain relationships across the void. Kyle visited the barrier edge every week, spending hours talking to Kate and Emma. Emma had grown up during the war, forced to become an adult far too young. She told him about her work helping rebuild Denver's underground city, about her dreams of becoming an engineer like Sophie. I'm proud of you, Kyle told her. You're braver than I ever was. I learned it from you and Mom. You always said that being brave means doing what's right even when you're scared. 10 years after the silence, the galaxy had fully adjusted to the new reality. Earth remained sealed, a reminder of the day humanity saved everyone else. The Sol system became a pilgrimage site, where people from hundreds of species came to pay respects to the greatest sacrifice in galactic history. The unity forged by Earth's choice never fully broke down. Wars still happened, but they were smaller and resolved faster. The memory of what humanity had done prevented species from falling back into old hatreds. Kyle eventually retired from active duty, but he never left the Aurora. The ship stationed itself permanently near the barrier, maintaining communication systems and coordinating supply deliveries. It became his home, the closest thing to Earth he could have. Dr. Lisa Brennan worked with Earth scientists through the barrier, making breakthrough after breakthrough. The collaboration between sealed Earth and the free galaxy produced technologies that benefited everyone. Sergeant Danny Cross trained a new generation of soldiers, teaching them about honor and sacrifice using Earth's example. His sister Nicole did the same on the other side of the barrier. Their students, separated by energy but united in purpose, learned that true strength came from protecting others. Lieutenant Sophie Graham and Peter Hayes continued their conversations for years. Eventually, they fell in love despite never being able to touch. They married in a ceremony held on both sides of the barrier simultaneously, a symbol of hope that not even impossible circumstances could defeat human connection. On the 40th anniversary of the silence, Admiral Patricia Lawson, now very old, gave a speech to the assembled fleet. Her son had been among the survivors on Earth, and they'd spoken regularly for 4 decades without ever embracing. Earth taught us what it means to be human, she said. Not the species called human, but the quality of being humane. The willingness to sacrifice for others, the courage to make impossible choices, the strength to endure when all hope seems lost. We must never forget that lesson. Kyle stood with his crew on the Aurora's bridge watching the ceremony. Kate and Emma watched from their city beneath Denver's ruins. Across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing to remember. The message was simple but powerful. Earth had bought tomorrow with today. They had shown the galaxy that working together made everyone stronger. They had proven that no sacrifice was too great when protecting those you love. The barrier still stood, shimmering and eternal. Earth remained sealed, a planet-sized monument to courage and sacrifice. 400 million survivors lived their lives behind that wall, building a new civilization from the ashes of the old. They would never leave. The barrier could never come down. But they were not forgotten. Every ship that passed by the Sol system transmitted a simple message. Thank you. We remember. We will always remember. Inside the barrier, in the restored underground cities and the slowly recovering surface areas, Earth's survivors heard those messages and took comfort. They had lost so much, but they had saved everything that mattered. Kyle stood at his usual spot near the view screen, looking at the barrier that held his family. Kate appeared on the screen, older now but still beautiful to him. Emma stood,